Today's episode is brought to you by Media for All, which was set up to help encourage more Black, Asian, and other ethnic talent into media, and to provide a support and mentoring network to ensure talent flourishes in the media industry that we all love. If you're looking for a mentor or would like to mentor young ethnic talent, check them out at mediaforall.org.uk, and it is all 100% free.
Hello and welcome to the Shiny New Object podcast. My name is Tom Ollerton. I'm the founder of Automated Creative, and this is a podcast about the future of marketing. Every week or so, I have the pleasure and the privilege of interviewing one of our industry's leaders, and this week is no different. I'm on a call with Carolina Ferreira Lopes, who is product manager at Lululemon. Carolina, thank you so much for joining the podcast. Can you give the audience a bit of an overview about who you are and what you do?
Of course, Tom. Thank you so much for this kind invite. My name is Carolina Ferreira Lopes. I'm originally from Lisbon in Portugal, but I've been living in London for the past 5 years. I've worked across industries like FMCG and e-commerce in quite iconic companies such as Unilever and Farfetch. And I'm now the commerce product manager at Lululemon. For those who are not familiar with the company, it's a healthy lifestyle inspired athletic apparel company for yoga, running, training, and that is really focused on creating transformational products and experiences which enable people to live a life that they actually love. I focus myself on creating innovative experiences in both digital and omni-channel retail to our customers in EMEA and making sure that we reflect the brand globally as we grow.
Wow, what a lovely mix of ambitions and goals there. So before we kind of get more into that in detail with your shiny new object, I just have a couple of getting to know you questions. So in that varied career, what has been the best investment of your time, energy, or money?
Well, I think it's a mix of the three. um, and it was actually moving to London. Portugal is quite a small country in this broad space that Europe is. And I think moving to such a diverse city has really broadened my horizons as it unlocked so many opportunities, and it enabled me to meet and learn from such amazing people from diverse backgrounds. And I think by having different interactions with people that think differently or that have different life experiences, um, I now am able to live a much richer life because all these different perspectives and ways of seeing certain aspects of life made me reconsider my initial beliefs and the way I actually saw my career or my personal life, and setting new goals for the future. So definitely, I think this was like a turning point in my life and my professional career, just because of the opportunities that it unlocked.
And if you were going to make another big city move, like ignoring the fact there's a pandemic on at the minute, assuming that all sorted itself out, hopefully at some point, where would you go next for that, like, shake up of your the people that you meet and creating a whole new diverse set of experiences?
Well, if you asked me that question before lockdown, I would have said I would still love to try to live in like new places like Australia or somewhere in Asia, and then even try to like pursue something like an MBA. But right now, what I'd really love would be to have like a new cultural shock experience, and maybe thinking of something like Asia, more specifically, maybe Hong Kong or China, somewhere where technology is still emerging, and that could have and could represent a new, like, massive challenge for me, both personal and professionally.
So new belief or behavior has had an impact on your work life in the last few years?
Well, this may sound a bit new or uncommon for someone to say out loud, but what the new belief that I've been trying to like embed in myself over the past couple of years was actually to assume that people have the best intention at heart, and that quite often they are genuinely trying their best. And sometimes it comes across as being like more challenging or creating more obstacles or just not smiling all the time. And that's perfectly normal just because it's the way they are. They come from like a different background. They see things differently, and that is fine. And just being open to like a different perspective and truly believing that they are there to support you and they have the same objectives as you do just makes life so much better and so much more enjoyable.
And so, can you tell me this situation or situations that led you to have that new belief?
Um, yes, of course. I think over I've had multiple professional challenges, not like difficulties, but different teams, cross-functional, across different time zones, and sometimes the way you communicate um, is not optimal, especially now that we live in like such a digital age. You don't have enough time to like just speak to people on the phone or attend meetings in person, speak face to face, which makes a whole lot of difference. And by interpreting different messages in different ways, it doesn't necessarily mean that it was exactly what the person the other side was trying to say or to express. A good example was from in my previous company. I actually was working with a team of software developers and designers that was based in another country, and we only happened to like meet maybe once or twice a month, and all the other communications were just held virtually. And sometimes when I was trying to convey an idea or explain like a different perspective, I sometimes felt, oh, maybe they are not getting me, or maybe they think like what I'm saying is bullshit and they don't really believe on what I'm saying. And then I would spend like a week or two trying to send like different messages or conveying my message on a different way. And then when I met them in person, they were like, oh no, that was actually super clear. And we totally agree with you and we support you. And we've already actually developed half of the process for you to see now because we are super excited. And that for me came as such a surprise because the way people communicate isn't sometimes your style or the way you're used to, and it leads to like misinterpretation so many times. So I think if you start by assuming that people always come with like a positive perspective and a positive approach and they are really there well intentioned, it's already halfway to like a positive and a constructive working relationship.
And
What
so, how has that changed your behavior? So, when you have a call with someone or a video call and they don't like get super excited with what you're saying, do you just let it pass, or do you clarify something, or do you have some other form of like communicating or getting to understand their point of view if their body language isn't giving you the reaction you wanted?
I think I come less defensive sometimes, and also more like open to exploring what and getting to the root of what someone else is trying to say, and really make something I do right now that I didn't used to do in the past is listen more and talk less. So just coming up with questions that help clarifying any outstanding questions that I may have, rather than just jumping into the question or the conclusion straight away, so that I like offer the other people in the conversation like a second chance or another avenue to communicate what they intend to, rather than just like closing in my own bubble and having my own um, beliefs from the beginning, just like really opening up to the world and embedding their own perspective. I think that's what changed the most.
So, what have you become better at saying no to these past few years?
I would say definitely prioritizing is key. And that's something that I learned over the last couple of years. So, requests that are not like super urgent or that are not my responsibility are things that I've started saying no to a, in a bit more like easier way. And it took me a while because I used to be, or I think I still am, quite a perfectionist. And I used to try to be like always present, always trying to overachieve, do everything for everyone all the time. And for me, that was really consuming, and it was so energy draining, that it frequently got me derailed from what was actually my key priority and what I love the most doing. So, a couple of examples could be, I try to attend all the meetings that where I thought like a relevant update could be shared or like a super interesting project. I would try to like be part of all core initiatives, everything interesting at a time, and I would end up spending maybe like 16 hours of my day on my job, not doing anything else, not investing time on myself, and on the things that I like to do outside of my professional life. And I think that started impacting me quite a lot from like an anxiety standpoint, or just like seeing life pass by. And I was just like focused on work and on what the next step was going to be. And I tried to like remove all the like the unnecessary things. I read a book called Essentialism, which I think was somehow like a life changing content, because it helped me remove what was really unnecessary and that was just contributing to lathering up on my time rather than bringing me joy or learnings or satisfaction. And I started focusing on what was key. I learned how to ask myself like some specific questions to be able to triage what could really have a positive impact on my life and on the people that surround me and that I care about, rather than things that I just wanted to do or to commit towards just because I was seeing someone else doing that, or because I read somewhere that it would take me to the next step on my career. And that has completely changed now. And even like from a more personal standpoint, being abroad means you spend less time with your family and your friends. And when I go back home, it's usually for a week or even less. And I would prioritize like spending the most time with the most people that I could. And I, at some point, I was so tired because I wasn't getting enough sleep, or because I was just running from meeting a friend to having lunch with another and then working in between, that I was not present. I was there, but I wasn't like offering to the people that I care the most my best self. So that's something that I stopped doing. And now I just like focus on the people that I really want to meet and that I want to have some quality time with, because life is short and you never know. Um, and especially after my grandmother passed away, it was quite like a change that I decided to do myself on the way I invest my time personally and professionally to make the most out of it, I think.
This episode of the Shiny New Object podcast is brought to you in partnership with Manfest,
Whether it's live in London or streamed online to the global marketing community, you can always expect a distinctive and daring blend of fast-paced content, startup innovation pitches, and unconventional entertainment from MadFest events. You'll find me causing trouble on stage, recording live versions of this podcast, and sharing a beer with the nicest and most influential people in marketing. Check it out at www.madfestlondon.com.
So we're at the halfway stage now, and we're going to talk about your shiny new object, which is connecting customers online to offline. So I think I know what that means, but what is your take on that, and help the audience understand why you're excited about this as a shiny new object?
So I've worked both in like very specific marketing, from like coming up with new products to launching relevant campaigns for different markets to different audiences. And now I've like slightly shifted more to creating digital experiences, but that also have to mimic somehow like the experience that customers have like within retail spaces like stores. And what is really exciting for me is the role that technology plays in enabling what we call omni-channel experiences. So making sure that the experience that a brand or an entity provides to its customers is quite seamless wherever they are. So if they are at the store, if they are browsing the website, if they are using an app, they always feel the same connection and the same affiliation to a brand, um, and really help them live that experience to the maximum. And I think this is particularly relevant during COVID, where we see so many spaces, retail spaces, closing temporarily, and like people changing their shopping habits and the way they browse for new things, the way they look for solutions to mitigate their problems, their needs is so different. If we compare to like 5 years ago, where most people would just shop in retail. If you think in the past, like a store experience is multisensorial. It's all about the way products feel, how the environment feels, the smell, the light, the people that you meet there, and that explain you what a brand or a product is about, and is really building that connection. Um, and so the key challenge is, how do you bring that to an online space when the physical one is not available and is not an option? And how do we make sure, how do we as brands make sure that that connection and the reassurance to our customer remains the same? So something that is quite important to people is to feel that connection and that recognition from brands. So getting the feeling that once you go into a store or you land on a website or you use an app, the brand knows who you are, because you're a true customer or because you've shopped with us before. It doesn't really matter what the context is. They Customers just like to feel that whoever is on the other side knows what they are, no matter what that is, and that they will be present to establish like a relevant and contextual communication without being necessarily intrusive. And what I find particularly interesting about this is, obviously we live in a world and in a time where data is very available. Um, we are actually able to know what a specific customer looks like, how old they are, what things they like, because they've told us. But thanks to things like AI, we're actually able also to learn from them and to come up with solutions or anticipate their needs, and then present them with like products or experiences that meet those and that solve that problem, that is exactly what they are looking for, but sometimes they didn't even know they had. um so it's really interesting to see, from everything that we know by being in contact with someone, by being, for example, staff on a store, learning directly from a customer. How can we mimic also that experience online, but not by like asking someone to fill out a questionnaire, but by looking at the different things that they do. What things do they browse? What categories, colors, what, trying to guess what their mood is, what are they exactly looking for? And then how do we build the bridge once we have customers that have shopped, for example, in physical retail, and then they move to online? And how do we make sure, and I think this is the core challenge for most of the brands right now in the current pandemic, is how do we build the bridge? How do we make sure that we keep building on this connection and this relationship with people that have shopped before, that are very familiar, but also with new ones that have only now joined kind of like the brand community? And how can we learn from them? What are the things that they are passionate about, the things they like, and how do they feel somehow comfortable being approached by different brands at the same time? Um, and from all the available tools that we have nowadays in like the mid of 21st century, we have feedback in physical retail. We are able to understand, thanks to um, software platforms, what different user signals, that's what we call in digital, can we actually absorb from looking at how someone shops online. And then from the information that we are able to get from the two streams, how do we kind of like build a persona for a specific customer, so that we can, on one hand, support on the needs that they already know they have, and we are constantly there to support, to send relevant communications once we know that we have new products available that they like, or once we know there is like an exciting event that they could probably benefit from. But on the other hand, how do we keep uh, like the flame and the excitement live, so that it every time that they are with us, that they have this experience, it almost feels like it's the first time, because brands keep renovating themselves. Brands learn from their customers, but also from competitors, and they are able to just create this whole, as I said in the beginning, omni-channel experiences, where no matter where the customer is, it's always at heart. And whatever brands do, it's always for the customer first, because they know them, because they've spent time understanding the different kinds of audiences that the brand has, and they are still able to basically connect the dots and deliver a relevant experience to the different types of profiles that we have right now, especially if we think of like global brands that target so many different profiles worldwide. It's fantastic to see how technology actually enables this like data merge to get to know someone else, and to be able to deliver like a quite relevant experience every time they shop with us. I think that's really the future.
So I love the ambition of it, and I think if you nail that, then you've probably got the CEO's job almost in some ways. But I'm just curious to know, outside of you guys, who do you think does this really well? Who gives you that connected online, offline experience, and who delivers that, as you say, always feels like the first time experience when you either interact with that brand in their bricks and mortar or online?
Oh, that's a very tricky question. And I think brands that really come to mind were, or either I had the experience myself, or I think have like a quite robust um, data mechanism to get customer insight behind, are brands like, for example, Nike, Uniqlo, where the communications that are sent to guests could be the same if they were like in store or if they were browsing the website. But even if we think from like on a more diverse industry, even brands that are more grocery focused or others like IKEA, for example, the experience of browsing and building something new are always new every time a customer comes. And like a quite well, I already have some age on me, but if I think of my past, like brands like Lego are just still capable of doing such a fantastic and mesmerizing in-store experience as they do by creating inspirational experiences online. And then I think the last reference that I really need to make is one that is quite controversial, but I think is still brilliant on its approach to customers. Is Apple. From the design and the feel and the connection that is built with customers to the way they treat the data and they engage further on like retention and advertising new products, new solutions, and really listening to what the problems are and communicating back that the solution has somehow been found is one of a kind, really. And by having diversity, inclusion at heart, I think it's one of the key players in the market these days, in what comes to an omni-channel experience.
Who does it badly? Who do you think is really not getting this right?
I won't say names. I would just say brands that have so many customers, but they don't do anything with what they know about them, that are just focused on an initial brand image and brand purpose and don't really care about the external environment that surrounds the brand. And that is not capable of changing and adapting to the diversity that is around them, for sure.
So if someone's listening to this and they think, I totally agree with what Carolina is saying, what are the steps that they can take in a marketing function towards that? Because I think your vision is spot on, but to make all of those things work is very, very difficult. So how does a marketer help become part of that solution?
I think definitely by listening to customers. And when I say listening, is really being present and removing any bias from that they may have previously had, and trying to understand the different nuances that may be present depending on the customer's profile. And when you have that and you can somehow predict what your customer needs are and what probably the next ones are going to be, you can understand what your brand is able to do in order to actually address those. And then it's all about the job that a marketer does, which is coming up with different ways of communicating that proposition, engaging with customers, making sure that once that first step has happened, how to keep them engaged, how to keep them part of the community, and not stopping by the first like perception that you have of your audience, because times change. And especially now, I think it's a big proof that brands that are able to adapt and where they have their marketing teams really shifting their mindsets to either a more digital approach or targeting platforms where they can be closer to customers when, for example, stores are closed or when there are certain limitations in terms of mobility. I think that definitely plays a big part in the future of retail and of marketing.
So unfortunately, we are at the end of the episode, and I'd love to go into this in more detail. But if someone was listening to this podcast and they would want to reach out to you about the subjects that you've covered, how would you like them to do that?
I think definitely message me on LinkedIn. I'm always available, and I try to respond um, as soon as I find a little bit of time. And always keen to hear more about like different perspectives on the topics that we covered or on other aspects of life.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for this kind invite. It was a lovely time.
Hi, just before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you could take the time to write a review of the Shiny New Object podcast on Apple Podcasts or iTunes, whatever it's called these days, or whichever podcast provider you use. We're an indie podcast, so it would go a long way for us if you could just share the word and give us a bit of a support on those channels. That'd just be fantastic. If you haven't got time, that's also cool. And yeah, if you could tell your colleagues about the podcast, and also, if possible, don't forget to subscribe. And I'd love to hear your feedback. If you'd like to speak on the podcast or be a guest, or you think I'm asking the wrong questions, anything, I'd be super interested to hear what you think. So please email me at tom@automatedcreative.net. That's TOM at, I'm not going to bother spelling it. Anyway, you'll work it out. Thanks so much.